Happy New Year one and all, and welcome back to the channel. Yes, we're not in our usual location because I didn't want to ruin anything. Normally I'm kind of in front of my display, but today we're going to talk about the best and worst figures of 2018 as we now move into 2019. And had I been sitting in my usual location, I think there may have been a couple of spoilers along the way that I didn't want to give you just yet. Anyway, stick around. We're going to count down from best to worst in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. Happy New Year to one and all. I wish you nothing but the absolute best for 2019, going forward into what will hopefully be a fantastic year for you. Please check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, Transformers Collectors NL, and me everywhere. Like, comment, share, and of course subscribe. Start the year out on a positive note, why don't you? And before we count down anything, to get into spirit. Aha! Yes, I light up now, and I am decorated. Okay, so normally, when I do this time of year, first I do it later, I'm getting to it early this year, but a lot of the time, what happens is I'll do a 10 best of 20 whatever, and I'll do a 10 worst. Well, this was a bit of a different year because we didn't have as many releases, or at least as many releases that interested me. I'll talk about that later, but we generally didn't get as many releases, and what we did get for the most part was pretty good. And I do try to basically stick to like official releases, official product, though there are some fantastic third-party ones. I try to stick to official releases and product when I do these countdowns. And this is like really usually from my own personal collection. There's a couple here that are not from my personal collection but that I did take a look at during the year. And basically where we're going from is the last wave of The Last Night through Wave 2 onward for Power of the Primes, right up to now Wave 1 of Siege, to Olive Studio series, the Bumblebee movie, and Cyberverse. That's pretty much what we're covering. And the way we're going to do it this time is we're going to start from the very best and count back to 1, and then we'll do the mediocre to the worst. You'll see. You'll see how it goes. And even when we do the worst, like when that list starts out, they're not bad. They're not bad. That's the thing. I'm kind of taking the worst of the strongest. I feel like I've said that before, but in this case, for the most part, it is. Very little was weak this year, in my estimation anyway. Of course, this is absolutely subjective. This is not objective. This is my own interest, what I was happiest with and least happiest with. And of course your list might be different. So like there's no science or objective grading here. It's just what I liked, man. It's just what I liked. Now, all of that being said, now here I'll turn this off because it's a distraction. All of that being said, it's also in no real particular order. So I'm going to start off with a few shout-outs first. I have everything over here. And the shout-outs are really, I guess they're more honorable mentions. Honorable mention number 1 is MPM Barricade. That thing is, it's perfect. It's perfect. I've only ever given one Masterpiece figure, or Masterpiece-esque figure, 10s across the board. And that was the M01 Commander from Wei Jiang. And it was basically a Masterpiece version of Evasion Mode Optimus Prime. That thing was perfect. Well, movie Masterpiece Barricade is perfect 10s across the board. He is fantastic. But I'm not including him here because as a Masterpiece, he should be fantastic in my estimation. And because he is the only Masterpiece that would be included in this list, it would sort of be unfair to have him in there, but undoubtedly 10s across the board. Speaking of the only other one being 10s, being a Wei Jiang product. We also have this guy getting an honorable mention. This is the Wei Jiang Ultima Guard. He is stunning. He is fantastic. There's nothing bad I can say about this guy. From the feel of the materials to the engineering to the build quality to everything. I got this guy for my birthday this past year, and I regret absolutely nothing about selecting him as my version of Omega Supreme, but I cannot include him because he's not official product. He is basically a Titan class figure, which brings me to another honorable mention, that being the Power of the Primes Predaking. As individual members, the Predacons aren't that great, but as Predaking, they were a fantastic combiner. They were stunning and very functional with a great range of motion and very solid. And then that brings me to one last honorable mention. And this one is honorable mention because I got him this year, but he is not from this year. I also got him for my birthday. It is Vector Prime. I absolutely love this figure. Is it perfect? No, but it's so robust and solid and great and big and beautiful that I do not get tired of it. So there's the honorable mentions. Let's get in now to the top 10. And at number 10, we have, believe it or not, a figure from the last night. It is Cogman. Now, some people might say, hey, you should have included him last year in 2017. Perhaps, but I didn't get him in 2017. He did not release around here in 2017. He showed up just a couple of days into 2018. So he is a 2018 purchase, and around here a 2018 release. Did not show up beforehand. This is going to be redecoed, by the way, during the Studio Series line. If you didn't get it from the last night, get it in the Studio Series. It's a fantastic figure. It's like, it has 2 seats where you can put 2 Titan Masters. It is from really the Titans Return engineering, and it works splendidly with beautiful paint apps, and the new one I expect to have just as good a paint apps, if not better. Although I don't know if you could get any better. Let's move on to number 9. And number 9 is a smattering of some of the smallest Transformers that we've gotten, certainly recently. These are the Siege Micromasters. Now, this isn't all of them. This is some of them, just the ones I took in my hands. I love these things. They did not get a price increase. They stayed at the kind of price point of Legends class figures. Yes, perhaps it'd be nice if they had elbows, but they're so small that I can forgive it. The, like, I guess weapon mode that they have is but we'll talk about all of that later because I haven't looked at these guys yet here on the channel. I'm gonna, and I certainly have some thoughts about who I think is the best and the worst of these and why. But yeah, we'll talk about these, but honestly, I've been having fun with these ever since I got them. They come in at a very strong number 9. Number 8 might be a little bit of a cheat because it's actually 2 figures in one. That's right, it is the 2 Legends class figures that make up the Duocon Battletrap. And while I like the Offering and Siege for Flywheels or Skytread, whatever you want to call them, and that's very true, and that's a good figure, and we'll talk about him a little later down the road. I love the fact that we had 2 robots here, that they go together to make another great robot that, even in terms of like how you can arrange the junk on his back, like it's so versatile on where you can put it and how it can come together. There's nothing to dislike here. You can even switch his pants with Skytread. That's great, they're interchangeable. Yeah, I don't think there's anything to like here. Some people have said, hey, there's a lot of kibble and it's bulky, and they're not a fan of him. I think that he offers so much play value and so many interesting configurations to put things to suit your taste that it's hard to get bored with him very quickly. And for that, he has to be an absolute win and comes in at number 8. Let's move to 7. I think 7 is going to be considered controversial to a lot of people because it's a mold that has gotten a lot of flack and that a lot of people absolutely dislike, man. Dislike. But I don't. I thought it was great. And that is Moonracer. I understand why some people don't like this, but like it's svelte, but Everything works nicely on it. Yes, some people complain about the backpack. Don't fold it up as a backpack. I don't really fold it up as a backpack, but there's different things you could do. You could leave these wing pieces splayed out to the side and just fold up that piece, or you could fold the whole thing back, or you could do what I have done and kind of leave that down as like a hip skirt type of jacket tail thing. There's different options, and I display her differently than I do Nova Star. I don't know what I'll do when I get green light, but I'm definitely getting green light. And spoiler here, on green light's packaging, we have one of those codes, because it's a siege figure, and the code there says Lancer. I have a feeling we're also going to get Lancer because her code doesn't open up any like stop motion video or anything. It opens up 2 images, and one of them is a combiner that is made up with Elita-1 as the core, or Thea, I think maybe is the name. Like it has the, like that combiner has an official name now. We have Moonracer, Nova Star, and green light as limbs, and then the 4th limb is just listed as classified. Probably because Lancer has not yet been released. I like, as a, like, I guess female combiner, I like this set more, and I think it's going to be a more interesting, colorful look than I liked Victorion. The green and red on Victorion, it's just, it was strange. It's not a bad combiner, it's just, it was a strange look, man. And the nice thing is, even if you don't want to combine any of these, it's just nice to get like that group of female Autobot resistance kind of done. When did anybody think we would get that done? They were only in 1 episode. You know, they were only in 1 episode, and we're getting the entire team. Plus, besides for the combiner, we have an extra Chromia. What's not to like, man? The articulation here is fantastic. The transformation is great. About the only fault that I can see, even the paint, the white paint is smattered all over the place on her. About the only thing that I could really honestly see to dislike might be the like little starts on her back, her chest, whatever it is. Back here, I think it is. Yeah, back there for when she's rolling. I don't find that it causes a problem on her. I do find it causes a problem on Nova Star. But you can always just sand them down so that they're not in your way if you really wanted to. It's not that big a deal, man. Just saying. Anyway, I understand the gripes against her, but I really enjoy this mold. And I'm kind of, it's one of those rare ones that I'm kind of happy to get a few times. I know. But hey, I'm used to being in the minority. Let's move on. And perhaps the next one will cause less controversy, or so I can hope. It's actually not all of Abominus, because there are certain figures here that I like better than other ones. But the torso, Hun-Grr, is a tremendous update. He has stupendous articulation. For the most part, he was extremely toy accurate. And really, based on that kind of Superion, Scattershot, Silverbolt sort of tooling for the torso, which was easily the best of the torsos. So I thought that he turned out really well. Now, to solidify the body here, I thought it was so interesting to put the front paws up and this front piece in, and the way that his 2 dragon head things come down on the side. There's nothing here to like, or dislike I mean, in torso mode or robot mode or beast mode, unless you just plain don't like your Transformers turning into weird, obscure beasts instead of vehicles. Then maybe you didn't like them. But, for representation of Hun-Grr, I don't think they could have done any better. And we're about at the halfway mark now, and who do we have up next but another controversial one that people either seem to really enjoy or really not. And I even went through my own kind of drama with this guy. It is Power of the Prime's Punch Counterpunch. And I like this guy. I really do. Now, mine came missing a tire. I went through a whole story where I had to source a tire. It required me fixing a couple of figures for, another Transformers fan, which I was happy to do. I was glad to be able to save a couple of his figures. And I was super glad to be able to get my tire. But besides that, I love this guy. I love the size of him. I love the feel. I love the conversion. A lot of people complain and say, it's hard to get those sides in. Not really. A lot of people complain and say, you had to change the shoulder pieces around. Not really. At least not on mine. I'm not going to say not really. If you felt the need to do it, then hey, go for it. Here's the thing. I didn't want to return him. I would rather source the tire because returning him may have resulted in me experiencing even more QC issues. Since the only one I really experienced, for the most part, was the missing tire, the better option was to source that from somewhere and keep the generally good quality figure that I had all along. Though when I did his review, I did count the QC that I'd heard about people experiencing, and it is far too much, especially for an exclusive figure. Nevertheless, now that I have that tire replaced, there's nothing I dislike about this guy. From his articulation to his conversion to his paint scheme, he absolutely fits the bill for me for this character, who I never thought that I'd get. So I'm also tickled to have a version of both Counterpunch and Punch. Next on the list should come as no surprise to anybody. It is the Studio Series Blackout. I love this thing. I did some custom work on him, but he is a very true to film looking robot. He is an extremely large and fantastical helicopter. He comes with a little version of Scorponok. He has decent articulation considering how hindered he should be. And a very involved yet ingenious transformation that can get fiddly at points, but once you get everything tabbed in, the alt mode is so worth it. So absolutely worth it. By the way, strong kind of honorable mention here as well to Studio Series Starscream. That thing is also an amazing figure, even though the general aesthetic is a bit strange, I'll admit, and I get why some people wouldn't be down for it. But as a toy, it's tremendous. As a toy, this guy's tremendous. And though a lot of people complained and said, hey, he's shorter than he should be for a leader class, maybe, but he is so bulky and heavy. It's all about the layout of the plastic content, guys. Was this guy worth it? He was to me. He absolutely was to me, and that's why he is so high up on this list. And at number 3, we visit Siege one more time with Cog, Deluxe Class Cog. Now, a lot of people in their countdowns have really been touting Optimus or Sideswipe or Hound, but I don't know if we really needed any of those. They're okay. Like I said, I'm going to be looking at Siege coming up, and I think I have some very different takes on my opinions of the characters. However, this guy, for ever so many reasons, is my absolute favorite of the Siege line so far. Now, a lot of people watching this will be like, GotBot, come on, man. Come on, Cog? Cog? But he's a parts former. He's supposed to be. Because he's made up of gasket and grommet, so he's kind of supposed to be. These blasters don't fit in his hands. Actually, they do fit in mine, so too bad, you know, for people that have those tolerance issues. I thought that I would have a lot worse tolerance issues with this guy. I have incorporated him with Fort Max, as he should be, and now I can't wait for Six Gun, I can't wait for Brunt, because this guy is a rock star, man. Absolute rock star with tremendous articulation. Like I said, we will look at the Siege line later, but I don't regret for a second placing this guy at number 3 for my top figures of the year. And at number 2, we have Optimal Optimus from the Power of the Primes line. Now, I had the original Beast Wars Optimus Primal. And I got this guy, and I wasn't sure if I was going to keep him or not, but I feel like he fits well with my maximal team. And he's so extremely versatile, even though he's missing a mode. But there's a fix for that, and I do think that this is one of those cases where getting the upgrade kit would definitely help this guy out. Even without it, though, there's a lot here to like, and there's even some fan modes for things like the smaller ape that you can come up with. Because he's so versatile, because there's so much nice paint on him, even though I did touch up some areas, and because you could do so much with him and explore so much from him with a huge amount of playability, he has to come in at the number 2 spot for the year. Now, we move on to number 1, and I think this one's absolutely going to shock some people. Number 1 comes with a caveat that takes me back to last year, because number 1, I do believe, for my worst figures for last year was this guy. I did not like the Power of the Primes, Rodimus Prime. I don't like the mismatched colors. I don't like the cumbersome conversion scheme. I had even done I'm gonna say a mod to try and give his smaller robot better forward leg articulation, and ended up kind of breaking the figure in half. I could hold it together, I could put it back together, and he still works fine, so I didn't see a need to replace him. But I had said then that he'll never go back together in his large robot mode. And that is something that I revisited when I looked at Rodimus Unicronus, who never did get a retail release in my neck of the woods. I had to get him from online because friend of the channel, Paul, actually won him. He won him some time ago, earlier the year, and was kind enough to let me take a look at him. And I thought that that was a markedly better use of the mold for a number of reasons. 1, the coloring was excellent with the purple and the black, and the purple had such a nice shine and sheen to it. 2, I thought that the conversion worked more smoothly. The tolerances seemed like they'd been tweaked just enough that I didn't have the problems with him that I have with this guy. And 3, I felt like the articulation was smoother on that guy. Like with this guy, when I move the arms forward, these thigh pieces like to move. I didn't have that same issue with Rodimus Unicronus. I feel like Rodimus Unicronus is the usage of this mold that always should have existed. I'll also point out here that while Rodimus Unicronus is number 1 for the year, and this guy was number 1 for worst of last year, I thought I had him absolutely ruined. Yes, I did break him in half, and I thought I could never put him back into his large robot mode. But as you can see, I can, and he's solid. Who knew? I guess now he's a little bit of a parts former, but he can still do, even though he's broken in half, he can still do absolutely everything he could before. Every mode that he could before, from the battle station mode to his vehicle mode to the just hot rod vehicle mode to the small robot that stays together just fine to the large robot. Maybe he deserves a little more respect than I gave him credit for, than most of us give him credit for. I still don't like him. I still think that Rodimus Unicronus is number 1 for the usage of this mold, and always what we should have had. So, sort of, kind of, at this point, we've looked at the best. I said that Rodimus Unicronus was number 1, but honestly, you could almost put any of them in the number 1 position, or the number 5 position, or the number 10 position. They're great. Some of the honorable mentions could definitely take the places there. And I know that there were a few surprises in there. Okay, so now we're going to move on and do the other part of this list, which is the top 10 worst. But really, we're starting out with just the top mediocre. And we'll go from mediocre down to the worst. What do I mean by mediocre? Well, a case in point, at number 10, we have Power of the Primes Tailgate. It's fine. It's a fine mold. One of my sections back here does like to pop off. It's a poorly toleranced, but like, it's just the wind charger mold. It's not, there's nothing special about it. It's tailgate. It's an accurate tailgate. I'm glad to have him, but like, he's just kind of boring. I can see why a lot of people would pass him over because it's tailgate. Just saying. Now, that being said, some people might say, hey, he had a lot more characterization and a bigger role in the comics, and indeed he did, but we kind of had a comics version come out a couple of years ago in the Generations line, which, granted, is not as good as this, but like, this is a couple of tailgates we've had now. I don't know if we need any more. It's tailgate. Tailgate. Case in point as well, at number 9, Power of the Primes Cindersaur. Great mold. Fantastic mold. Great paint here. I love this. I would score it high just because it's a fun toy. It's a fun mold, but like, Cindersaur is kind of obscure. Like, you know, how many people remember him? How many people are going to be drawn to Cindersaur or remember her? Because I think Cindersaur is actually male, but because of changes that weren't made on like the Biocar or whatever. I think this Cindersaur is a female. I don't know. I'm going to call the female Decepticon because we don't have enough of them. Whatever. It's fine, but I get why a lot of people might skip this one because they would say, hey, I don't really know the character. I already have the mold as Slash. I didn't need this. Kind of the same for Outback. I got them because I'm a completionist, but I can see why people would skip these ones over. And coming in at number 8 is Studio Series Lockdown, who looks tremendous. But there are certain fiddly tolerance issues when you're doing the conversion. Though robot mode is solid and vehicle mode is solid, kind of getting the conversion started going both ways is a little tricky, especially up around the hood and where the shoulders kind of tab in there. It's tight. Bringing the doors up on the side, it's a tight tolerance. It fits fine, but sometimes you gotta flex things a little bit more uncomfortably than you would like to have to do it. Because he's not as smooth as some other figures, that's why he is on this list. Is he bad? No, definitely not. In fact, next to Unique Toys Peru Kill, this is the best version of Movie Lockdown that we have gotten. Hands down. But the articulation can be a little cumbersome, and the transformation, especially for a novice, would definitely be like less than smooth. Wouldn't leave a new fan with the best impression of these toys are fun, because this one is a little bit frustrating. Which brings us to another Studio Series line entry. This guy, it is Ratchet, whichever Ratchet. Like, they're fine, they're alright, but they're not gonna, you know, blow anyone away with their awesomeness. You know, like, it's fine, but it's arguable that he's too small. Some say the Voyager from Dark of the Moon or whatever is better. Maybe. A lot of people don't like this kind of backpack piece. I'm okay. I have this guy's Remedy, who, in at least the Align continuity, trained Ratchet. So, like, I'm cool with that. I'll just repurpose him as a different Medibot. I'm fine with that. You know, Ratchet can't do it all by himself, man. Ratchet can't do it all by himself. Now, the next one I actually don't have the figure for because I had a lend of it, and it is the Studio Series 18 Volkswagen Beetle Bumblebee. It's not good. Like, it looks good. It does. It looks good in both modes if you can actually get everything to tab together in the bug mode. It looks great. It's not a fun conversion. It is definitely better than like the first Studio Series Bumblebee that came out, but while I like the articulation, while I like certain things about the conversion, while I like the look of both modes, I feel like they could have done other certain improvements with the paint. I feel like there's still room to improve on the kind of engineering of the transformation. And I feel like there are still certain ever so slight tolerance issues. And I feel like it's because that figure is sort of undersized for a deluxe size figure. Like, it's definitely bigger than a Legend, but it's not as big as most deluxes. And the only thing I could kind of compare to is back in the day, the Universe Galvatron, which is an awful figure, really should have been Voyager class. The engineering that went into it really should have been the engineering that went into a Voyager class figure. And I feel like in this one, the engineering should have gone into a more of a regular size deluxe, like a large deluxe, kind of like Counterpunch, like a larger deluxe. But instead it went into what could be almost considered an oversized Legend. And I don't think it translated really well to the smaller scale with parts and pieces and appendages that are slighter than usual. I just don't think it worked that well. And we continue on with the Studio Series here with Crowbar. Look, you give like a different haircut and a new head sculpt and slightly different feet, slight changes to the transformation that I think were designed to improve it. You hope for the best, but at the end of the day, Berserker is junk. This guy is junk. They're fine for display, they have decent articulation, they're good in robot mode. They're even fine in vehicle mode if you can ever get them there, although this guy's hair likes to stick out of the back. I would suggest Get them if you want the dreads, but like never convert them. They're just awful. They're just not good. We've got from mediocre to bad. This is bad. Bad. Just saying. And next up we have Power of the Primes Elita-1. Now, I don't dislike this. Like, a lot of people are like, she's supposed to be a land-based vehicle. Why is she plain? I don't know, because we saw her once, and I don't think we ever did really see her in vehicle mode. If we did, it was for a split second. Like, is she a significant enough a character that you really care if they change her alt mode? I don't. I do think that they captured the essence of her, and I like her look in plain mode. I like her look in this mode. I guess she's even an alright looking torso, though I am leery as to just how solid the torso mode will be and how well it will stay together. I guess we'll see when we get all of her limbs to combine her. In the actual conversion, like, I get how everything is supposed to go, but there are slight tolerance issues that make it not quite as smooth as I would like for it to be. You can get everything pegged in plain mode, but like, it takes some work to do it, and I feel like it doesn't stay the most solid once it's done. Like, you're only asking to nudge something to kind of make pegs and, you know, tabs pop out. She's not... I think she's better than Starscream. I think this is a better use of the mold than Starscream was. But there was still things that could have been done here to improve it. Is she better? Like, does she deserve to be this high on the list? No, I just forgot to include her earlier. She's one of those kind of like Tailgate and Cindersaur. Like, she's mediocre, she's alright. But she does have certain little, like, imperfections on her that, you know, might make you roll your eyes and say, why won't you just tab in? Is she as bad as something like Studio Series Crowbar? Nope. Very little is as bad as that. Very little. But you know what is as bad as that? This. And I don't mean Grimlock, though a lot of people would say, I don't like Grimlock. I do. I think it looks like Grimlock. I'm down with the look of the robot mode. I'm down with the look of the dinosaur mode. I do not like Volcanicus. The proportions are not good. As a torso, he's not great. He's not great. I feel like the body is too thin. Like, you've got to kind of fill it in with the buckler feet pieces if you got extra ones of those. Otherwise, it looks gangly. The shoulders don't stay great. The head is pretty cool, but like, it's not a great torso. It's almost like they compromised the actual figure in order to make him a torso. But then when they made the torso, they were like, I'm not really sure how to turn this into a torso, so we're just going to peg this in here and tape this on there, and we'll put some glue in here, and it'll be alright, and it'll look okay. But it doesn't really stay in place. So for that reason, he has to be listed as one of the worst for 2018. Now, before we do the last couple here, let me give a few honorable mentions that I didn't do for worst toys. You see, I've included a bunch here on the list already. But the truth of the matter is, really, all 10 could be made up of the Cyberverse line and the Bumblebee movie mainline stuff. A lot of shelf-warming junk nowadays. Way too much of it. Cyberverse. Their little Scout class ones are all trash because they only do a half conversion. Every one of them, garbage. The Ultra class, there's nothing Ultra about it. They're extremely limited. About the best one is Shockwave, and even he has, you know, the blaster arm has no elbow. Why? You could have given that an elbow. Then we have the huge, like, leader class size, I don't know whether Ultra maybe, or Ultimate. And like, we have the Ultimate Optimus Prime. That's a good figure. The alt mode is very unattractive, but that's a good figure. The Ultimate Megatron has no elbows. What? What? How is that Ultimate if it can't even bend his arm? He's the leader of the Decepticons. The guy should be able to bend his arm. And of course, the biggest part of the main line there is the warrior classes. Look, Shockwave is good in warrior class. His alt mode is trash. Prowl, He looks like he'll be good in both modes. And Soundwave. Outside of that, the rest of that line is junk. You have a bunch of Seekers that have come out. None of them have knees. We live in a day and age when you're putting out figures that don't have knees. Speaking of no knees, that brings us to a lot of the Bumblebee line. All of these things that use these, like, energon igniter switches things. No! I looked at one of those, and it was the little Legion class Bumblebee, which is a fine figure. There's nothing wrong with it, but it has this unsightly kind of hole on the back where you're supposed to put in one of these energon igniter things to make it zoom across the floor. It's, no! Don't. They're not good. There's a lot of these like Titan heroes, like it barely converts, if it converts at all. They're not good. None of that is good. Just saying. There's my shout outs. All of the worst for the year could have been Cyberverse and Bumblebee, but that would kind of been a little too obvious. So as not to be too obvious, let's look at what comes in at number 2, which I got it this year. There's a version of it that I believe released on January the 2nd of 2018, but the version I have is not that version. It is part of this guy. I'm talking specifically about LG42. The add-on here for Magnus Prime or Super Jinrai is God Bomber, and it's not great. Or Apex Armor, if you want to call it that. It's like, he looks tremendous. I don't regret having it for a second. He looks great, but it is not that functional. Especially the forearms, they like to fall off. When you just have the figure itself, it's very hollow because he's a complete parts former. None of his modes hold together tremendously well. There are add-on sets. I suggest to you, while I have the PC 16 myself, so I can just have like regular Jinrai. You don't need it, but you should probably get PC 15. I haven't got it yet. I'm hoping to get it at some point. PC 18 to especially fill in these arms. There are things that people complain about with this guy that I don't have issue with. But then there are also things that people have not mentioned that I do have issue with. You know, the sword going around is real loose. It's a great display piece. It's not the funnest play piece. And that brings us to the number 1 worst toy of the year. This number 1 does come from 2018. This number 1 beats out any of the ones we've looked at. Beats out anything from Cyberverse and beats out anything from the Bumblebee line. It is something that should have been really good, and it's not even that I absolutely dislike it, but its weakness, its major weakness, is the thing that makes it the worst. Who am I talking about for number 1 worst toy of 2018? This little guy. It is the brand new Transformers Siege Micromaster version of Swindler. And this is awful. Awful. I like the legs. The legs, like, I guess I like the legs. Like, they can go pretty much forward and back. We'll look at this guy more later on. Like, his legs are fine. The conversion I find cumbersome, but the worst thing is these arms. They're supposed to be able to go all the way around, and they do, but they bang into stuff the whole time. There, of course, is no elbow, but like there's zero outward movement. That's as far outward as you're getting. Zero outward movement. It feels like the ball joints there should be able to like pull out from the body a bit, and if they could have pulled out just a millimeter or two, it would have given enough motion to save this guy, but they don't at all pull out. And this guy suffers tremendously for it, enough that as much as I like the Micromasters, because I included them on the best toys for 2018, this one iteration is not only the worst of the Micromasters, it's a mold that I hope that they don't use anymore, because it's trash, and it's the worst toy that I have handled and played with in many years. That's how bad it is. I don't like anything about this, other than the actual alt mode. But I'll talk about that when I actually do the review. Spoiler, this guy's not going to get a good mark. Just saying. Anyway, there we are again for another year with the best and the worst, and I know that there are some selections that I put there that I'm sure some people would scratch their head over. But hey, like I said at the beginning, this wasn't objective, it was completely subjective. It was in no particular order, though it might have seemed like it wasn't in order. It really wasn't. It was just for fun. I'm sure your list would be different, and that's cool too. You know, everybody's entitled to enjoy what it is that they enjoy. Let me know who your favorite and least favorite figures of the past year were. Whichever. You know, who was your least favorite figure? Who were your least favorite figures? You know, maybe you got more than one. I don't know. That's it. It's time to move on through 2019. It's time to get back to work and bring to you guys a whole lot of new stuff. I certainly look forward to it. I appreciate you dropping by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. You know that it is very much appreciated. And I very much look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit right here inside the videos.